Hello and welcome to this 10-minute Texans talk. Not exactly Texans news, but it kind of is, so I felt the need to address it. Stefon Diggs has signed with the Patriots, so let's talk about it. Stefon Diggs signs a 3-year, $69 million deal, $26 million guaranteed to play for the New England Patriots. First thoughts are, wow, that is a high APY for a receiver that would not be the number one wide receiver on the Texans roster. It contextualizes why the Texans decided to go with Christian Kirk, why they moved on. Nico Collins' contract is $24 million APY right now. So to pay Stefon Diggs just $1 million less, I mean, his contract when he was with the team that last year was about $20 million. It would be a slight pay increase. The Texans didn't see him play a whole season. And I guess they didn't value what he brought to the table enough to fork over that money again for the same thing. And to be fair, I mean, they'd be paying that money to get the other half of a season that they didn't get last year because Stefon went out injured before the season was over. And that due to that injury, will not be back in all likelihood until the middle of next season. So with that in mind, I mean, I think the Patriots with their cap space and where they're at have the space to do that. It's a move that makes sense. Diggs gets his one, final payday, I would assume, before he kind of moves on to either retiring or taking lesser and lesser contracts to continue playing. I wish Stefon Diggs the best. I loved what he brought to the Texans. His effect on the team, I think, was most felt as a leader. Which will surprise the Bills and Vikings fans that told the Texans that this was an awful idea, because I think they thought that Stefon Diggs was just going to be a diva and be standoffish with all the other receivers on the roster and not provide anything useful. And that's simply not what happened. I mean, Stefon Diggs, if we project his stats over the whole season, would have been a very serviceable wide receiver too, and his effect as a leader and a veteran presence in that wide receiver room was felt. Regardless, even when he went down injured, it was still felt by that team. So I think that the Texans maybe wasted a second-round pick on the move. Hindsight's 20/20, right? You could look at that and you could say, oh, half a season from Stefon Diggs is not worth a second-round pick. Now, do you make that trade every time if you're trying to build a win-now team after the rookie season CJ had, wanting to put together the best team you can? Yeah, I don't blame the Texans for making that move. It was a high-risk, high-reward move. And then the risk obviously outweighed what was gained. So, I mean, all these Monday morning quarterbacks can sit there and dissect the move and make of it what they will. I don't think that the Texans won the move. I do think you can chalk it up as a loss, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I would have known how to do it better than the Texans there. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I wouldn't have given up a second-round pick to get Stefon Diggs. If I was Nick Caserio. But all that to say, the Texans' move to extend Nico Collins for what they did is looking smarter and smarter by the day. A receiver of Nico Collins' caliber at $24 million a year opens up a lot on this roster, and I think the best way to continue taking advantage of that is for the Texans to go early in the draft and take a wide receiver to pair up with Christian Kirk and Nico Collins. And I mean, obviously also address the interior offensive line, which is to me the final step that they should really address in the draft. Although, I'll talk to it at length, and I'll probably talk to it more leading up to in this next month leading up to the draft. But I could see the Texans taking a tackle or a wide receiver, even though tackle's not the primary need along the offensive line for this team, simply because of that's being the best value at 25. I think that Nick more than likely trades out if that becomes a thing. If they get there and they don't have a wide receiver they really are in love with, then I could see them moving back from that pick. With the Bears or the Patriots, you heard it here. Those are the two teams that I would be watching due to the value of the picks that they have. But yeah, I mean, this one's probably not going to go 10 minutes. I mean, there's not 10 minutes worth of things to say about Stefon Diggs and him signing with the Patriots as it pertains to the Texans. But to recap, I mean, Diggs, great leader, brought a lot to the team. Sad that it ended soon. Sad that, it couldn't be worked out to bring him back. But I didn't really think at any point, even when he was traded, once they voided those contract years that they had outside of the 1 year. I knew in all likelihood it was going to turn into a 1 year rental, which was going to make it hard for it to be a win for the Texans, just given the fact that Diggs would have had to play it out of his mind, which would have played him out of a contract with the Texans. And it turns out even with his injury, he still was going to call for a contract that was outside of what the Texans were going to be able to give him. So just, you swing for the fences and sometimes you don't get there. And that's, I think, what we can learn from this move. The fact that the Texans have a need at wide receiver this offseason, given what was thought of this wide receiver room going into last year, things don't work out. And that's just what I'll chalk it up to. But thanks for listening. As always, you can find me at James Roy NFL, wherever you do social media at. This is a 10-minute Texans Talk. It's on the same YouTube channel as The Bullpen, a Houston Texans podcast where Tom and I break down everything going on with the Texans. We're doing Monday nights live, so make sure you tuned in so that you can be a part of the conversation. And thanks for tuning in. As always, stay classy, Houston, and vamos Texans.